Bachelor number one, I am serving you for dinner.
Oh.
What are you called, and what do you look like?
I'm called the banana, and I look really good.
Can you be a little more descriptive?
Peel me.
In 1978, a handsome, charismatic man sat under bright studio lights, flashing a confident smile. He was a contestant on the hit TV show The Dating Game, charming, witty, and seemingly harmless. But behind that winning grin lurked a dark and disturbing truth. The man was Rodney Alcala, and he wasn't just searching for love, he was hiding a monstrous secret. A gifted photographer with a way with words, Alcala used his charm to lure unsuspecting victims. Authorities would later uncover a chilling collection, hundreds of photographs, many of unidentified young women and children. But how did this seemingly normal man manage to evade justice for so long? And how did his horrifying double life finally come to an end? Stay with us as we unravel the shocking case of Rodney Alcala, one of the most deceptive criminals in modern history. Rodney James Alcala was born on August 23, 1943, in San Antonio, Texas. His early years were marked by instability. When he was just a young boy, his father abandoned the family, forcing his mother to move with Rodney and his sisters to Los Angeles. From an outsider's perspective, he seemed like any other child growing up in post-war America, but something within him was different. At 17, Alcala enlisted in the U.S. Army, eager to serve his country. But his time in the military was short-lived. After experiencing what doctors described as a severe breakdown, he was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder and discharged on medical grounds. This marked the beginning of a troubling pattern, one where Alcala's manipulative and predatory nature would start to surface. Despite his early struggles, Alcala appeared to turn his life around. He enrolled at UCLA, studying fine arts, and later attended New York University's prestigious film program. There, he studied under Roman Polanski, a celebrated director. But while Alcala was honing his craft behind the camera, he was also developing a far more sinister obsession, one that involved deception, control, and the illusion of trust. Alcala became fascinated with photography, using his skills to approach young women, offering to take their portraits. He seemed professional, even charming, but this was just another tool in his growing arsenal of deception. His victims, many of them aspiring models or simply trusting strangers, had no idea of the danger they were in. By the late 1960s, Alcala's disturbing impulses escalated. In 1968, a witness saw him luring 8-year-old Tali Shapiro into his apartment. When police arrived, they found a horrifying scene. But Alcala was gone, having fled before they could capture him. This would set off a years-long manhunt, allowing him to slip through the cracks of the justice system again and again. Who was Rodney Alcala, really? A gifted artist? A master manipulator? Or something far worse? The answers lay in the dark path he would carve over the next decade.
Tali Shapiro was 8 years old, and it was a beautiful sunny day in September.
And this adorable little girl would skip to school each morning, carefree, loving, wearing her little white Mary Janes. And then the horror story of Tali begins.
For years, Rodney Alcala had been perfecting his disguise. To the world, he was a charismatic photographer, a man with an artistic eye and a friendly smile. But behind the lens of his camera was something far more disturbing. He wasn't capturing memories. He was choosing victims. In the late 1960s, Alcala's violent tendencies surfaced in a terrifying attack on 8-year-old Tali Shapiro. A witness saw him lure the young girl into his Hollywood apartment and immediately called the police. When officers arrived, they forced their way in and discovered a horrific scene. Tali, badly injured, barely clinging to life. But Alcala had escaped, slipping into the shadows before they could arrest him. With law enforcement closing in, Alcala fled across the country. He reinvented himself as John Berger, enrolling in film school at New York University and studying under director Roman Polanski. But his violent urges didn't stop. In 1971, Cornelia Crilly, a 23-year-old flight attendant, was found lifeless in her Manhattan apartment. The crime went unsolved for decades, but it was just one of many that Alcala left in his wake. Under his false identity, Alcala secured a job at an arts camp for children, a place where no one knew his past. But his time there was cut short when 2 campers recognized his face from an FBI wanted poster. He was arrested and extradited back to California. It seemed like justice had finally caught up with him, but shockingly, due to legal loopholes, Alcala served just a few years before being released. And once he was free, the cycle started again. Between 1977 and 1979, Alcala's crimes escalated. He used photography as a weapon, approaching young women with promises of modeling opportunities. They trusted him, never suspecting the horrors that would follow. Some of his known victims during this period included Jill Barcombe, 18, found in the Hollywood Hills; Georgia Wickstead, 27, a nurse, discovered in her Malibu apartment; Charlotte Lamb, 32, found in an apartment laundry room; Jill Parenteau, 21, taken from her home in Burbank. His methods were brutal, his crimes deliberate. He didn't just take lives, he prolonged his victims' suffering, reviving them multiple times before finally ending their ordeal. It was a game to him, a twisted form of control. But it was the disappearance of 12-year-old Robin Samsoe in 1979 that finally led to Alcala's downfall. She had been riding her bike with a friend when a stranger approached, offering to take their picture. Hours later, Robin was gone. Days later, her remains were discovered in the foothills of the San Gabriel Mountains. Witnesses came forward, describing the eerie man with the camera, and soon police had a suspect. Rodney Alcala had spent years hiding in plain sight, a predator masquerading as an artist. But now, for the first time, law enforcement was closing in, and this time, there would be no escape.
She called me at the office, and she was like, "Ellen, I can't go out with this guy. I mean, he is a creep. I'm not going. I can't."
She, as she said, very creepy vibes from him. She felt very uncomfortable.
I went, "Oh, God, no, don't go. I mean, you don't have to go." I think it may have saved her life.
On June 20th, 1979, a mother's worst nightmare became reality. 12-year-old Robin Samsoe had spent the afternoon riding her bike to ballet class with a friend. Along the way, a stranger approached them, a man with a camera asking if he could take their picture. Hours later, Robin was gone. Her bike was later found abandoned, but she was nowhere to be seen. Her disappearance triggered an immediate search, one that gripped the quiet beachside community of Huntington Beach. Flyers were posted, neighbors searched, and the media broadcasted her story across California. But it wasn't until 12 days later that the devastating truth was uncovered. A pair of hikers in the San Gabriel Mountains stumbled upon remains, badly decomposed, but soon identified as Robin. The news sent shockwaves through the community, but the most pressing question remained: who had done this? The case took a turn when Robin's friend, the last person to see her alive, described the strange man with the camera. A composite sketch was created and distributed. It wasn't long before someone recognized the face. An informant called the police with a name: Rodney Alcala. The tip immediately caught the attention of investigators. Alcala had a violent criminal past, including an attack on a child years earlier. But was he responsible for Robin's death? As detectives dug into Alcala's life, they uncovered something chilling. Inside a storage locker in Seattle, rented under his name, they found a collection of hundreds of photographs, portraits of women, girls, and even children. Some of them were smiling, seemingly comfortable in front of the camera. Others, however, had an eerie quality, as if they had sensed something was wrong. Investigators feared that some of these people had met a terrible fate. Police also uncovered key physical evidence linking Alcala to Robin Samso's murder. Among his belongings, they found a pair of earrings that had belonged to the young girl. This was the break detectives needed. With witness testimony, a disturbing history, and now physical evidence, they finally had enough to charge Alcala with Robin's murder. But their case was about to get even bigger. As the investigation into Alcala deepened, his past crimes resurfaced. Detectives started to connect the dots, linking him to a series of brutal attacks and unsolved cases stretching back over a decade. The media soon dubbed him the dating game killer, after discovering that he had appeared as a contestant on The Dating Game in 1978, smiling and joking on national television, just as he had been hunting for his next victim in real life. Rodney Alcala was now in the spotlight, but not in the way he had once hoped. Investigators built their case meticulously, piecing together years of evidence. But justice wouldn't come quickly. Legal battles, overturned convictions, and years of delays stretched the process longer than anyone expected. However, one thing was certain: Rodney Alcala's time in the shadows was finally over. After years of evading justice, Rodney Alcala finally stood trial for the murder of 12-year-old Robin Samso. The evidence against him was overwhelming: witness testimony, his disturbing collection of photographs, and Robin's earrings found among his belongings. In 1980, the jury reached a swift decision: guilty. Alcala was sentenced to death, but this was far from the end of his story. Alcala's conviction was overturned not once but twice due to procedural errors. Each time, the families of his victims were forced to relive their worst nightmares as he was retried. But with each new trial, more evidence surfaced, evidence that connected him to even more victims. By the early 2000s, advances in DNA technology linked him to at least 4 additional murders from the 1970s. The full scope of his crimes was finally coming to light. In 2010, Alcala was tried once again, this time for the murders of Robin Samso, Jill Barcombe, Georgia Wickstead, Charlotte Lamb, and Jill Parenteau. The prosecution presented damning evidence, including his own unsettling photographs and the disturbing way in which he prolonged his victims' suffering. This time, there would be no mistakes. The jury found him guilty on all counts, and he was sentenced to death once more. But in a twist of fate, Alcala never faced execution. In 2021, he died of natural causes while on death row, taking with him the answers to many unsolved mysteries. To this day, authorities believe there may be more victims. Many of the individuals in his haunting collection of photographs have never been identified. Rodney Alcala's case isn't just the story of one man's crimes. It's a chilling reminder of the flaws in our justice system and the dangers of those who hide in plain sight. Despite multiple arrests, he was given chance after chance, slipping through legal loopholes and exploiting weaknesses in the system. How many lives could have been saved if he had never been released? His use of charm and deception allowed him to blend into society, a theme we see time and time again with some of the world's most notorious criminals. It raises an unsettling question: how many more are out there, masquerading as ordinary people? Even now, Alcala's true number of victims remains unknown. The hundreds of photographs found in his possession suggest that there are still unanswered questions, still families searching for closure. This case serves as a stark warning: always be cautious, trust your instincts, and never be afraid to question someone's intentions. What do you think? Could there be more victims out there still waiting for justice? And how many lives did Alcala truly take? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this case as disturbing as we did, don't forget to subscribe for more true crime stories every week.